At this time, I'd like to call to order the Human Services Committee meeting. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I have the clerk take the roll, please?
Commissioner Samasco,
Present.
Commissioner Baldwin, Commissioner Bohm, Commissioner Torello,
Here.
Commissioner Rushing,
Here.
Commissioner Vandenbosch,
Here.
Commissioner Baden.
Present. I don't see any additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda, so can I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Support. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any citizens wishing to be heard on the Human Services Committee tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. Any updates from commissioners? Okay. Any conceptual initiatives? Seeing no old business, we'll move on to new business. Item 7A, the Veterans Affairs Board appointment for final action. I believe we have ballots for our candidates.
Yes, we do. Just ignore the date on the top. I just didn't change it.
So do we need a motion to take the vote, and then we'll take the vote?
Yes.
Move
Okay.
that we accept, make the vote by ballot and submit them to the clerk for counting.
We have a motion, do I have support? Support. Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a moment to vote on the candidates.
The selected candidate is Jim Leslie.
Congratulations, Jim. Moving on to item 7B, we have the Health Advisory Board appointment for final action this evening. I have a motion.
I would move that the clerk distribute ballots, written ballots for submission and counting.
Support.
Any discussion? Take a moment to vote.
And Don Falk was the candidate selected.
Congratulations to Dawn. Moving on to item 7C, the Health Department Plan of Organization.
Make a motion, send it full board.
We have a motion. Any support?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Did you want to talk about anything?
I hate to always go first.
Well, if you're not first, you're last, so.
Doesn't matter. Well, 94-page document, very well put together. I will start by saying that.
Can you speak a little bit louder into the microphone? Thank you.
You'd think I'd learn. 94-page document, very well put together. I'll just start by making a comment about the director's portions that she provided. The last meeting we had our medical doctor here, and I was very impressed with his community-based approach to delivering services to this community in a way that satisfies the community. And those sentiments are actually carried out in the comments by the director contained in the report that she made note that it was a rough couple of years. We've come out of COVID, that the community's trying to heal over some issues with all the turmoil, and she echoed some of the same sentiments that he wants to serve locally the public, and that's kind of where I come from, is to have our health department be our health department and serve our citizens in a way that satisfy our citizens, so not so much Lansing or other interests that may have certain agendas. So I did have a couple questions for the director. I don't know if anyone's going to present it or not. Was there anyone here from health department? Or?
We do. We have Liz and Greg both here.
Okay.
Do you want to come to the podium?
I did send an email out to, I shared it with Lisa at least, and I have some other copies. I've got copies of that. One of the things that I was concerned with was the vetting of the teen health centers. We had a movement to have teen health centers in Capac and Yale, Algonac, Marysville, City Port Huron, already had them. In this report, it contains some actual numbers. It contained the number of contacts that we had with the health department for teenagers, persons that were less than the age of 17. And the teen health centers treat people between 17 to 21. I thought it was just up to age 21. But my concern was, you know, when we did the issue with the teen health center, was that the primary approach would be that 100% of times the health department makes an effort to have the parents involved with care of the children, parental consent. But there are situations where that's not appropriate, and there are statutory exceptions for between age 14 to 17. And I just wanted to make sure that that was documented. I didn't know how often it happened, but there were people in the community that were concerned that you would have unconsented parental consent, confidential contact with their children, and in physical abuse, sexual abuse, drug addiction, parents that aren't parents in the home, those kinds of issues, kids still, there's times it's important. And I merely asked that it be documented, and the philosophy was discussed, and we were satisfied with it, and we moved to make those placements, and those numbers are now in this report. I just thought it was important publicly to state that there were in my district, there were evidently, based on the email with Liz King, our director, there were no unconsented confidential contacts in Capac and Yale. There were a few in Marysville and so forth. Port Huron had a larger number because they had 2,000 contacts or something. So I was satisfied that the health department is monitoring that. It is recorded, and they're making sure that in every instance where there is unconsented or confidential contact, that's recorded in a confidential medical file, and that the reasons are stated. Am I correct on that?
Right, yep, so that's what I put in my email, and I explained to Commissioner Samasco, but for all of you to have an understanding that 98% of our contacts with those 14 and above do have parental consent. That consent can be electronically signed. It can be on a piece of paper and scanned into the record, but there is 98% of our kids, and we broke it down a little more by each clinic as well. Like Commissioner Samasco said, our teen health centers has over 2,000 encounters, so we're going to see a little higher percentage there at 2.6%. But then we also have 0%, like you said, in Capac, 0% in Yale, 0.5% in Algonac, and then 2.2% at SC4. We see a higher age range at SC4 as well. So I just wanted to reassure everyone, he asked that I do that about parental consent. When those 14 and over, those 2% who are confidential, who need a confidential visit, it is documented in the EMR. There is a checkbox so that for recording purposes, it's easily pulled. We can easily report these stats out for those who need them and for us to watch and do quality improvement on. Then it is documented again in the reason for the visit. And it's also the nurse documents it in the narrative note as well. And we can pull reports out of that as often as we'd like, and to do more quality improvement on how it's documented, how often, those kind of things, and follow back up. So.
I really appreciate that. I sent that to Liz. This was a large document. We had other large documents to look at. I really didn't get through this until yesterday, and I sent an email out, and Liz sent it right back. So I really appreciate that bit of information. That was something I was interested in. On your attachment G is this, our board approval of your budget as part of this package. I looked through that. I couldn't see in there I'm not going to ask you to do it now, but it just makes sure that it actually says it was approved. I looked at the agenda from December 8th. I wasn't a commissioner then, but I didn't see a reference to it, so I just made a note of that on the review. But the other question I had was more, you have a whole listing in attachment I of what you call coalitions and committees, and I was surprised at that large number of 3 pages of coalition and committees. How do the coalitions and committees, I guess, do coalitions, how do you define, what is a coalition versus a committee?
I would define them more as all collaborations. They're community partners who we work with on multiple different things, not only just nursing, but there's a lot of environmental health groups in there as well for water quality and that type of thing. So I guess there are differences probably between committees and
Committees may be a little more formal. Well, see-
I would say a lot of it is interchangeable, and I think it
Okay.
depends on the name of the committee, right? There's it's just how the group names themselves. Sometimes,
Well-
I don't know that there's a definitive
Okay.
difference
Well,
between a committee and a
The
coalition
reason-
for us.
the reason I-
Sometimes it's more driven by the discipline.
The reason I ask is the health department forms policy.
Thank you.
The health department forms policy and delivers services. The coalitions, these coalitions that you associate with, many of them are boards and have independent assignments of people to these various nonprofits and various coalitions and so forth. Do the coalitions or committees drive much of the policy for the county, or is it more advisory in a less formal sense?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I think there are committees and coalitions we sit on in which they're more public health related and with our peers. And then there are also community boards that we sit on for a public health presence. They need a public health person on that board. And really that's to offer the public health perspective to that entity. Really, they don't drive a lot of our policy making unless we're asking specific questions of that group.
See, I'm kind of going back to my initial interest in what occurred last year and how the health department's going forward. Liz King's very interested in improving the trust and improving the operations of the department publicly. So on some of these, I'll just name a few and I'll ask you a question. Like you have the Child and Family Service Network, Public Health Protection Team, Child Adolescent Health Advisory Council, School Health Committee Alliance, Local Interagency Council on Early On, PHH Maternal Special Child Care Committees. These are all things associated with the children, and there's just like a 25% association for local public health and so forth. So I guess my question is, I really like to see the fact that our health department is driven by a local health director, this board, our advisory board, and the community. Do these other boards and the people that are on those boards don't necessarily drive a whole lot of how you do your job? They're more just a resource, I think, is what you're saying?
At times, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of those listed are all of our staff. I mean, that probably goes down, that's not just us at an admin level, that goes all the way down to frontline nursing staff, and that maybe they're in a child adolescent work group with other communities, right, or people from the region, and they glean information from them as well on policy, sometimes what they're doing, but
It
ideas.
certainly helps us keep the pulse of what the community's looking at and what community activities are and what their thoughts are.
Are there any real major changes from the document you would have submitted, I guess, 3 years ago, or is this pretty much kind of just the same?
No, there's not many changes because it's a template set by the state with certain parameters just to indicate that we are organized per the public health code. So they send us a checklist of all the items they
Right.
want to see in there. So it's all updated, but the bulk of the
So this-
content is the same.
This gets submitted to them, and then you're a certified health department. What is the import of being a certified health department on a state level? What does that do for the county?
Well, the accreditation is because we have programs that are state funded.
Okay.
Fully state funded.
All right.
And we have to be accredited to continue with those yearly agreements with the state. So they will be coming in the end of October to accredit every one of our programs for a week-long basic inspection and interviews.
Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay.
At this time, we'll take the vote. All in favor to move to full board?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7D, the contract renewal approval request for Overdrive, Inc.
Make a motion to move to full board.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7E, the library board reappointment. A motion to move that to full board.
So moved.
Support. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7F, the contract approval request rethinking libraries for consultation and development of a 3-year strategic plan for the St. Clair County Library System.
Make a motion, send to the full board.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any other human services matters to be brought forward tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to 9 for information only.
Make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to receive and file packets?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I can't hear you. Yes.
Call the Judiciary Public Safety Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Smasko,
Present.
Commissioner Baldwin, Commissioner Beeden,
Present?
Commissioner Bohm, Commissioner Torello,
Here.
Commissioner Rushing,
Here.
Commissioner Vanden Bosch.
Here. We've got 2 additions to the agenda. Can I get a motion to add to the agenda?
Make a motion to make 2A 7E and 2B 7F to new business.
Support?
Any questions on that?
I had a question. I actually asked the administration on this. We do these add-ons. I just want to make sure that, as a general rule, we don't add things that aren't urgent. That when these are added, there's a reason to add them. So these particular matters needed to be addressed before the next board meeting. Is that what I'm correct?
The 2 items are time sensitive.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll make a motion to accept the amended agenda.
Support?
Any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on to number 3, citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard for judiciary and public safety? Hearing none, moving on to, we have no update, do we have any updates from the commissioners?
Nothing for me.
Nothing. And we have no conceptual initiatives, no old business. Moving on to 7A, Resolution 2316, revising criminal indigent defense counsel rate pay for St. Clair County Public Defender. Can I get a motion to move to the full board?
I would ask that we move that to full board for consideration and passage.
Support.
Any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Moving on to 7B, 2024 Emergency Management Grant Program, Work Agreement Approval.
I'll make a motion to move that to full board.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Move on to 7C, 2022. Is that supposed to be 2022 or 2023?
22.
22, okay. interlocal agreement between Macomb County and St. Clair County for Homeland Security Grant Program approval.
I'll make a motion to move that to full board.
Support.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 7D, 2024 Crime Victims' Rights Program Grant Agreement Approval.
Make a motion to move that to full board.
Support.
Any questions on that one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Does anyone have any judiciary or public safety? Oh, never mind. Let's do 7E instead. Port Huron Area School District Contract Amendment for additional school resource officer with the Sheriff's Department.
Move that, make a motion to send that to full board.
Support.
Any questions?
Just a comment, I think the Sheriff Department's doing a fantastic job with all our school district. I'm aware with Memphis, but of course I think what they're doing is a big plus, and this is paid for entirely from the school district.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 7F, Warning Information Notification System, which is the WINS provided, or service provider change request. Can I get a motion to send this to the full board?
So moved.
Support.
Any questions on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. No other judiciary public safety matters tonight. No information only. Can I get a motion to receive and file packets?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
At this time, I'd like to call the Board of Commissioners Environmental Public Works Committee meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Samasco,
Present.
Commissioner Baldwin, Commissioner Beeden,
Present.
Commissioner Bohm, Commissioner Rushing,
Here.
Commissioner Vandenbosch,
Here.
Commissioner Torello.
Here. Seeing there's no additions, deletions, or changes, can we have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
Well, we have a deletion on, we have a revised one, so
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking
Yeah.
at the wrong paper. Hello.
I'll make a motion to remove 7B, which is 2A, delete Parks and Recreation, proposed acquisition of Woodsong County Park.
Support.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I do have one.
I'll make a motion to accept the amended agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Support.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. I do have one citizen wishing to be heard, Katie Fiore, Airport Director.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. I wanted to invite you, as well as the entire St. Clair County, to come to the airport on Saturday, August 19th for our Wings and Wheels event that we're having. We are inviting everyone to come out to have some food trucks. We have classic cars. We even have some military displays that we'll have, some static displays. And also for the kids, we are having free Young Eagle airplane rides. So these are for children 8 to 17. There is an online forum that they'll go on to register. And we're accepting, I believe we have 50 openings for airplane rides. So again, everyone, please come out. We'd love to see you. Again, it's on Saturday, August 19th, starting at 9 o'clock and ending at 2 p.m.
Thank you. Are there any updates from the board? Seeing none. Is there conceptual initiatives?
None.
No old business, we'll move to new business. The first item, 7A, the resolution 2318 pledge for full faith and credit for the How Randy Moore Drain bonds.
I'd like to make a motion to send that to the full board.
Support.
Can I interject there?
Well,
Any discussion?
yes, you can start. You're the chair.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions on this resolution. And I probably should have called earlier to talk to you, Carrie. The scope of work on it, I didn't know that if there was an ability for us to be able to see the scope of work on it. I didn't know if this is a project that could be stretched out over time so that we didn't have to obtain a bond.
So what happens is the drain commissioner will issue debt for this project, and then it is special assessed over a period of time back to the individuals in that drainage district. But the funds are needed up front to pay the contractors for the work on that drain.
Do we know what the percentage is?
I do not know the allocation or breakdown of how that's going to be assessed, but I can get that for you from the drain office prior to next meeting.
Thank you. Yes, Steve.
I've already gotten that from the drain office. I did send for that, and Jim, the second guy down, sent that to me.
Hartson.
Yep, Jim Hartson.
I contacted administration, I got that information. It's a sizable project that was started by Fred Fuller back before your drain commissioner. It had never went forward, and now the costs are higher. They had a meeting. It affects Fort Gratiot, Clyde, and some of Port Huron. That's what it is. And they've done the allocations. They issue the bond, as our administrator said, it's over a 10-year period. So the special assessment's spread out for the taxpayer over 10 years, but it's a drain that affects multi-townships, and they're just now getting it done. Also of interest is our drain commissioner lives in that district, so that's being handled by Sanilac County Drain Commissioner. So he cannot have anything to do, he doesn't go to the meetings, he wouldn't even talk to me about the numbers, because he felt he wanted to be appropriate and stay, hands off, because he lives in that drain district. So I did do the due diligence on it. I do have, I printed it off, it's 150 pages of numbers and people's names, in case people call. If anybody wants it, I can send it to them, I did scan it. But it's really a drain commission issue, as I understand. Our county will have I think, we have a 10 or 20% based on our road footprint in the drain, so we have to pay, the state has to pay, everybody pays their amount, but it's going to cost the county, as they all do, a certain amount. I don't have that. It's on the paperwork, but it won't break the bank, but we're on the hook for some of that as well.
And I know, forgive me for not knowing this, but and I think the St. Clair County was on for 10.5%. In what budget is that paid through?
So that comes from the drain at large budget, which is budgeted in the general fund, and that pays the county portion of all drain projects.
Thank you.
If you could, it's approximately what, 600,000 what we fund the drain commission's office from the county?
It's been a bit more than that. It depends on the maintenance they do each year.
So Commissioner Torello was asking me to maybe just explain how that system works. And so the drain commissioner is an independently elected public official. And it's his job. There can be drains that he goes and cleans because they're flooding. And there can be those that are petitioned. And this How Brandy Moore was petitioned, and it just didn't get done. There were other projects, I'm not making judgment about anybody, but there was stuff that didn't get done. So one of the things he had to finish was this project. So, and there was already a board of review saying that reviewed the petitions to go ahead and determine this work needed to be done, and they approved it. So it's his job as the elected drain commissioner to get it done, and he is. So what happens is they get estimates, engineers' estimates for the cost of the work, and then what they they do is they bond out based on those estimates, and then they bid it out afterwards, because obviously prices can go up and down. And the drain commissioner is all authorized to do all of that, but the one thing he can't do is issue bonds, drain bonds, without backing and the full faith and credit of the county. And the reason is, he has no full faith and credit. I mean, it's just a small office in him, and it's money coming in. So the county, on these kinds of projects and other kinds of projects, for townships that don't have the bonding authority, that type of thing, the county board lends its full faith and credit so he can go sell bonds and borrow to get this done. So that's the process.
Okay. I just have one other question if I can. Carrie, when it said that there's a special assessments that it would be levied from, now, is that from the landowners who are just in that district who are going to benefit from this drain, or is that countywide?
So it would be the property owners that are in that drainage district.
And it's assessed based on benefit. So if you're remote and you get very little benefit, your assessment will be low. If you have a parcel that's close and it floods a lot, you're going to get more. It's based on size, benefit, a lot of factors. And they do a good job of it. The fellow you mentioned, he's an engineer, but he was with a private firm that did this stuff, and they're very good at it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Sorry. Okay.
Hartson's his name.
Thank you. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7B, Parks and Recreation proposed. Oh, sorry, dang it. I'm really goofing up tonight. Sorry, folks. All right, so item 8A, the Smith Creek landfill activities report.
Make a motion to receive and file.
Support? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, other environmental public works matters, seeing none. Can I get a motion to receive and file packets?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Oh. What?
It's an aye.
Oh. Any opposed? Motion carries. Information only, the monthly Parks and Recreation.
I'll make a motion to receive and file packets.
Second.
No, that was. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That was a rough one.
This time I'll call the Ways and Means Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Samasco,
Present.
Commissioner Baldwin, Commissioner Beeden,
Present?
Commissioner Trello,
Here.
Commissioner Bohm, Commissioner Vanden Bosch,
Here.
Commissioner Rushing.
Here. See, we have a revised agenda here. Can I have a motion for add this to 7E?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion?
It's also time sensitive, this edition.
This addition goes with the increased presence for the school contract. This is adding an additional person to do that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Can I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. All right, I have two citizens wishing to be heard. John Thompson first.
Hello. It's been a while since I've been to these meetings, but my mind has not changed about the expansion of the 26-mile road and what a select few want to do to make it into an industrial corridor. There have been 2 town hall meetings in Marine City and many commissioner meetings and several online surveys about 26 Mile. And the people and I have spoken out against it time and time again. Save our farmland, save our woodlands. Once it's gone forever. It's not right for only a few people to profit from this. We live here for a reason. It's not for industrial parks. We should stop this before we have to fight to keep out the Chinese facilities or any other foreign facilities trying to set up a mega factory. How ridiculous is it that the U.S. is selling our land to the Chinese? You better find that alarming. I strongly believe members of the EDA will sell us out in a heartbeat, and they will do it with their NDAs. For what? To make a few bucks? Is it worth it? To rezone our land? Thank you.
Libby Prill.
Good evening. I'm asking again for clarification on a public hearing for the EDA Brownfield grant. I don't think we really have answered that question. Jeff Donaldson said that it isn't required, but the statute states that before approving a brownfield plan for an eligible property, the governing body shall hold a public hearing on the brownfield plan. Alternatively, by resolution, the governing body may delegate the public hearing process to the authority or to a subcommittee. I can't find a record of it anywhere, so I really don't know. We may or may not have done this, but if we did, if at some point you could let us know so we can kind of go back and take a look at it. Also, I'd like to know how this is going to tie in with kind of like a master plan. What's the big picture plan for the Southside Neighborhood Improvement Authority and the development of the property at Desmond Landing surrounding the EDA building? Like, is there a theme? Or a general vision for this. So last time I was here, I mentioned that Cotterville had a rezoning request on their local board meeting for a third parcel on Starville Road to be rezoned light industrial. Well, it turns out at some point in time, without really the community quite understanding it, that third parcel was somehow rezoned. When the first two, I don't really have all the details on that. My understanding is that Sensation Boats plans to build two 50,000 square foot buildings on this property. It's just my understanding. I haven't really seen anything in writing. So my question is it one or two factories? Is it a factory and a showroom? The township clerk referred to this area of Starville as an industrial development district. Now, this is right at the corner of 26 Mile Road, so I see it as an end run around the development of a 26-mile corridor issue. The downriver, and I know it's a Cotterville issue, but the problem is our Board of Commissioners chairperson is very involved in this and is intent upon developing this area for industry. Downriver taxpayers have been clear about their desire to protect our lifestyle of clean air, water, and soil. We embrace our small town and rural setting. The Wade study recommends no industry east of Meldrum. The Bell River Watershed Management Plan says that factories should not be placed on the watershed. Locals feel threatened by an indifference to our desired way of life. And I feel that this is reckless disregard for our water table and soil. I've also asked for more information on the nature of the Clair research and development facility, and so I'm hoping that at some point somebody will answer these questions during this meeting. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's all we have. Just a couple things. Is there any record of anything about the Brownsfield that she's?
Would there be a problem with Mr. Fletcher wanting?
I can answer.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what you're referring to, ma'am, is a brownfield development plan to use brownfield funds and capture funds and so on, and that requires a public hearing. What the board approved was not a brownfield development plan. It was a brownfield grant application. So that's money being offered in grants from the state, not a development plan, just strictly authorize a grant application. So two different things. So you're right on the kind of plan you mentioned. That has to have a public hearing. This was different. It's not a, it's a grant application.
So, So Gary, so then if the grant application were to go in and be approved, would there then be a hearing perhaps on receipt of the grant?
No, it's like any other grant application. A brownfield development plan or redevelopment plan has to have a public hearing before it can be approved and move ahead, capture taxes, do all that stuff. All this is a grant application, and for whatever reason, I'm sure the pot of funds they're using or whatever, the state called it a brownfield grant.
So does that mean that there's actually a Brownsfield plan that had been in place and now you're applying for funds associated with it? Because I don't really understand it either.
I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
why the state called it that or what pot of money they have that they're giving this away on, but these grants away, but it's definitely does not require a public hearing on our level. Maybe it does on theirs, but not ours.
And the fact it was on a noticed commission meeting hearing, that's different than a public hearing, but
Right.
that sufficed for approval.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm not getting into discussion, I'll just give you my information. In regards to any zoning, the county commissioners do not do that. The particular township that's involved with this, I believe it's Cotterville. If they purchased, and this is my understanding, serving on a ZBA, being a township supervisor, if a property owner buys the property prior to getting the zoning changed, you no longer have a hardship. You can go to ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and ask for a rezoning of the property because you now have a practical hardship. For if a business wants to move to that, they have to get a variance prior to, with very rare exceptions. Now, I'm not sure what the township does, but the ZBA has a lot of authority. It's above and beyond the township board. If they make a wrong decision, it still stands. So if they did make a decision to rezone the property, that decision would still stand. And you can answer me on that, Gary. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, the next step is court.
Right. Then you could argue in court. But the zoning and master plans are done at each municipality. The county commissioners not do that. We might try to assist whatever business it is, whatever township, whatever municipality on specific issues, but that's not our job as county commissioners. All right, do we have any updates? Seeing none. Any conceptual initiatives? We have none. No old business. Moving on to 7A, the 2022 UHY LLP audit presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight to present the 2022 audit for the county. My name is Karen Shafiq, and I am the partner overseeing the audit from UHY. Just before I get into the presentation, I do just want to thank Carrie and Dina and your whole administration team and all the departments for all your cooperation and hard work that I know goes into preparing for the audit. Not just preparing, but when we're here and putting some of your stuff aside to help us out. So I just want to say thank you. We really do appreciate all the time and effort. I will just go through a brief summary of the statements as the report is roughly 200 pages. The first part is of the financial section is the independent auditor's report. This is the only part of the statements that is UHY's. You do have an unmodified opinion, as noted on pages 1 through 4 of the big report that you do have. This is the best that you can have and what the county strives for each year. You did receive a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting for 2021, and that certificate is presented within the introductory section of that, the 200-page audit report. And the 2022 report has been submitted for an award as well. We will go primarily through the general fund here tonight, and we'll begin with the balance sheet on page 23 of the 200-page report there. At the end of 22, the general fund had assets of $17,230,753. Liabilities were at $3,823,520, and deferred inflows of resources were at $378,148, leaving you with a fund balance of $13,029,085. The next part in the report is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your general fund. For the year ended December 31 of '22, total revenues for your general fund were at $62,955,388. Your total expenditures were at $57,601,128. And your net other financing sources and uses was a use of funds of $5,040,381. So your net change in your fund balance for your general fund, just on your budget basis general fund, was $313,879. There are two other funds for accounting-wise that are combined with the general fund for financial reporting, and that's your budget incentive fund, which had a change in fund balance of a positive $231,843, and your development revolving fund had a decrease in fund balance of $37,944. So your total change in your fund balance for your general fund as reported in your audit was a positive $507,778. When we look at the fund balance of your general fund at the end of 2022, it is kind of split between a couple different pots there. Some of the fund balance is non-spendable. Essentially, that's for some long-term receivables and advances to component units and things like that that just can't be spent right away again. There's also a committed portion of over $1.2 million, which is the balance within your budget incentive fund. And the remaining amount is unassigned, which is at $10,234,860. That's approximately about 15% of your 2022 expenditures and transfers out. There are also a couple of reports or letters that we have also issued as well. There's a report on internal control as well as a management letter, and should be included in your packet as well. And we've gone over those with management before issuance at the end of June. The second part of at least the presentation packet there goes through your other major governmental funds balance sheet and statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. I won't go through all those numbers for you. There are a lot of them with those funds. And then the next page on 3 and on to 4, it goes through your non-major governmental funds. So there's about 25 funds here, going through your revenues, expenditures, and your net change in fund balance. And then on page 4 of that presentation packet, it categorizes the fund balance for each of those funds at the end of 22 and gives you totals for 21 as well. This packet then goes through some of the analysis for your enterprise funds. That's at the bottom of page 4 and continuing on page 5. And then moves into your internal service fund at the bottom of page 5. And lastly, fund-wise anyway, it goes through your fiduciary funds of the county on page 6, which goes through your retirement system, your other post-employment benefits, and your landfill trust. We did include some graphs showing or really the sources of your general fund revenues, and really showing the makeup of revenues, and really kind of where they're coming from, the sources, and they're really very comparable between 22 and 21, and that's on page 7. The next graph on page 8 shows the functions of general fund expenditures, and where again they are very comparable to last year as well. What functions expenditures were on. On page 9 is a graph that shows your fund balance, or the balance of your fund balance for your general fund over the last 10 years. And then page 10 goes through, it really shows what your revenues compared to your expenditures are, along with your transfers, and really just the level that they're at for the last 10 years as well. Any questions at all? I know it's a lot of information. I went through just a little of it, but.
Any questions from anyone?
we have questions, we call you at the office? Would that be appropriate, or?
What was that? I'm sorry.
If I had a question, could I call you at the office?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We don't need a motion or anything, this is just a presentation. 7B, library roof replace, RFP LB 0623-471, award recommendation for J.D. Candler. Can I have a motion to send that to full board?
So moved?
Support.
Any discussion?
Is that an ARPA project, Carrie?
Yes, it is.
That was on our capital improvement list. That was one of the,
Yes.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. 7C, legislative consultation services recommendation. Have a motion. Send it to the full board.
I'll make a motion to send it to full board.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
You opposed? We have one. Right. 7D, ARPA funds discussion. What do we got left? 16.8?
Yes.
Okay. We have numerous things, and I do definitely want to push this forward. We have concerns with the residents about 26 Mile Road and probably just about anything that can be done with these funds. I would like to have 750,000 or potentially $1 million from, given to each commissioner to be used in their district with projects that are ARPA approved uses. So the monies would have to be used for that. And there's some other things that I would want to discuss, but I'd start with that. So any other discussion?
I have some comments. Dave. You know, I know we don't have Jeff here, we don't have Georgia here, and what I would suggest we do, and I talked to a couple of commissioners about generalities the last few weeks and months. I'm like yourself, I wanted to see all of the funds get allocated, and I wanted to see the townships get, or not townships, the districts get another allocation like you guys did in the last, like a year ago, year and a half ago. So what I was suggesting, Jeff did ask that the amount be determined at full board, which I don't have a problem with. The other thing is, what I would suggest, if I were to make the motion, I would ask that we would move it to full board to consider making allocation of all remaining ARPA funds in two parts. First, an amount to be determined by the full board to be allocated to each of the 7 county commission districts as subrecipients under a written agreement acceptable to the board, which I think Mr. Fletcher is going to talk about here in a bit, the subrecipient agreement process and how that all falls out. So if we did 750 or $1 million or whatever it's going to be, I would make that, I'm not making a motion now, but I can after discussion. And the other piece would be that the balance of the remaining ARPA funds be allocated so as to facilitate our health department move to this building. And we have some preliminary numbers, but it's going to be a bit costly, but that's been really on the county's plate for a long time, and we were fortuitous in having the ability and the opportunity to move them into this building, taking advantage of the physical plant, the conference rooms, the maintenance, all the other things, plus it's a new modern building compared to what they've essentially suffered with, you know, for the last 3 decades over in South End. So, you know, it would be to take the balance of the ARPA funds, allocate to facilitate the health department move to this building, and then the rest of it to those capital improvements previously submitted to this board on recommendation of the administration. That would cut out any other things that people might be worried about, and we had plenty. I mean, your list here could take all of it plus ×3. So, to me, that would be the motion I would make. If someone wants you to make that motion and agrees with it, I would make a motion.
Well, I'm thinking potentially 2 parts, and see if my estimates are pretty good here. From what I understand, the health department has approximately $2 million that they can assist in the moving. Is that correct, Liz? You have approximately $2 million you can assist in the. Okay, fair enough.
They do have funds available in their fund balance that can be
And
used.
what I would like, potentially, just for discussion, of course, and the full board will make a decision, but allocate an additional $2 million, possibly $3 million, but then any funds that would be if we sell the property over there, that would come back to the county. So that would give $5 million to the health department to move. So we could allocate up to $5 million, and anything that the health department would come back to the county. So I would be willing, potentially a motion for $5 million. Is that a pretty good figure from what we currently have? Any quotes on what the move would take?
So we are going to be interviewing, the RFP went out for the architectural services. The bids all came back very close, so we are going to be interviewing those architects this month, and the recommendation for that will be coming to you in September. We have very rough square footage estimates that we could use based on the square footage that needs to be renovated, but it's a very rough number.
Would $5 million in your estimate possibly be able to cover that? Yes or no? I mean, we can always, because we're not going to be making decisions till the full board. Just a second.
It could be tight depending on what can and can't be reused at their current facility. We plan to take everything we can and reuse it, but we do know that there are going to be some things that need to be new, and then also different upgrades to our IT and security systems, because currently that building is not on our system, it's on the state system.
And we would have to look at what parts of the health department project qualifies for ARPA funding.
That's correct.
You see, Dave, on your point, talking with Jeff and others about some of these numbers, we really don't have, as Carrie said, good numbers to rely on. So rather than set a number of 5 million, if we did it the way I'm suggesting, priority one would be health department move. We'll know in 30, 45 days with some more numbers. We have plenty of capital improvements to take up the balance of the 9 million left after $1 million to each district.
Still potentially do it in 3 parts. If we send it to full board, whether it's $1 million or not, we could make a motion to send $1 million of that. That would take care of $7 million out of the 16.8 to go throughout the county, leaving a balance of 9.8, making sure that there's enough there for the health department at some point. So we don't need to come up with a figure, but then what you're saying, we could take the balance of that and make sure that it's allocated to capital improvement projects that do qualify.
Take care of the health department as needed with better figures and the balance to capital improvements, subject to this board's decision on that. But what I'm trying to do is allocate it so it's kind of allocated, so it's not like it's going to be, people are worried it's going to go to a bunch of other places. We have plenty of capital improvements. We're giving a large share to the township, or townships essentially, through the districts, which is gratuitous of us to do that, and I'm glad we can do it. But I think it's a good way to handle it.
Part of the concern, and I agree with it, is that if we do this, then we won't have concerns about, potentially, if we do not allocate this, then at any particular point, a 26-mile road or something similar, the funds could be used for. And part of the concern is, many concerns, the residents that have come and talked to us, is that they don't support it. And we can all have our own positions up here, whether we support it or not. But it's a concern that we get this put to bed and get the money set aside. So if I could, I want 2 motions, one for $1 million to be potentially for each commissioner, and then the balance to be used for capital improvement with the health department. So I'd like 2 motions.
The only disagreement I have with that is that Jeff did ask that this matter, and I think George would like an opportunity to make that decision on the amount, whether it's 73 million. So say an amount to be determined. What I was going to say is, first, that an amount to be determined at the full board meeting August 17th, 23, be allocated to each of the 7 counties, each of the 7 districts. That's the first part. I'll make that motion at this time, but it's the other motion that could go right with it. And second, that the balance of the remaining funds be allocated to facilitate the health department move to this building and those capital improvements previously submitted to the board on the recommendation of the administration.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Robert's rules, Steve, but can we have 1 motion at a time?
You can join them, but take the first motion. My first motion would be that I would move this board consider at full board making allocation of the remaining ARPA funds as follows. First, the amount to be determined at a full board meeting August 17th, 2023 to each of the 7 county commission districts as subrecipients under a written agreement acceptable to this board. That's my first motion.
Can I have a second?
Support.
Any further discussion on the first motion? And because we're not allocating, I just need, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, we've got 1 opposed. Motion passed. If you would, your second
The other
motion.
piece of it, Dave, would be second, that the balance of the remaining ARPA funds after this allocation we just passed be allocated so as to facilitate the health department move based upon these numbers that will come in, move to this building, and then the balance allocated to those capital improvements previously submitted to this board on the recommendation of our administrator, and that's just a recommendation, just a reference to the documents we've already had submitted. To me, that allocates, it's allocated, so that's my motion.
Can I have a second?
Support?
Any further discussion? All in favor of the second motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
All right, motion passed. We will now move to...
Before you move on, though, Gary, this issue, the document you submitted that, what do they call that? A sub-recipient agreement, the 56-page document that made me go blind when I read it. I'd like to talk, is that a good time to talk about that or
Sure.
not? You know, I read through it, and I read tough stuff as you do, you know, there's a lot of tough reading there. But what I wanted to do, now, you need any action on that, or was that just a discussion point, or what was it?
I think it was just submitted for informational purposes. What happened is Dina did a lot of hard work finding model documents. Then she moved, you know.
I get it. No, you ripped it off. We all do that. That's what we do.
And I cobbled on it a little, and this is what it is. And bottom line is, if the county provides money to some ARPA funds to somebody, we're the recipient, they're the subrecipient. So we have to say, you're going to agree to do this, and you got to comply with all these rules and laws. And a lot of them are federal rules that are imposed on us. And there's nothing like drastic in there. So basically, this just says, you're going to give us a budget, you're going to have the backup documentation when you send it, spend it, because all of that is what the feds will hold the county administration responsible to prove if they're audited.
I love it when the lawyers look at a 56-page document and tell us what it says in 2 sentences. I mean, that's great. I mean, and it does do that. I guess what I was thinking I might do is, you know, I did this as well. I look at documents all the time, and I looked at several documents, one from Washtenaw County, one from Berry County that was a 10-page document. I'd like you to look at them. I'd like to have a further discussion because this first document seems very overly verbose and complicated. The Washtenaw document merely has attachments to some of the federal regulation criteria as it's not in the document. This one that Dina had is all built in, and it's really, to me, kind of, I think we can do better with like a 10-page document. If I could maybe submit some of these for you to take a look at.
Sure.
They were really, yeah.
Yeah, we'll look at anything.
And then we can have a conversation about that. Maybe should we talk about that at full board when we do this thing next couple weeks about that?
I don't think we're going to, what would happen is when the grants are actually made, then it would be this much money to this entity for this, and they would have to have an approved subrecipient agreement. So in the meantime, we can look at this, look what you have. Honestly, I like things that, it's hard to look at this and say this, but that things that are kind of simplified.
Right, I get it, exactly. Yeah.
Overly complex drives me crazy sometimes.
Well, but because of all the pieces, it has to be with all the, there's so
cover.
much of it, you know.
I looked through it, and well, maybe we cut, no, it's got to be there, that's got to be there.
No, I did the same thing, but the other question is this, back in February, when I got on the board, we had the issue with ARPA, and I tried to get up to speed on how that gets rolled out. And I'd reached out to 2 or 3 consultants, thinking our administration could probably use the benefit. And we talked about it, and our administration was very satisfied that they were totally up to speed, they had the training, they had you to help them, so we didn't really do anything with that, right? Well, when this rolls out for the townships, eventually down to the townships, they're going to need help. I don't think our staff is going to be able to handle $7 million worth of projects submitted by people that really need help. So I did talk to some of the commissioners a little bit about it, and at some point maybe we can talk about, and for this one group, this Guidehouse group was one, they sent me the actual PowerPoint discussion with all their credentials and all that. I looked at it. There's a number in Price Waterhouse. There's a lot of these consultants doing that. But my question is, and to this guy I called today because I knew I had the meeting, I reached out to him again. I said, can you use ARPA funds to help people facilitate the application for a sub-recipient? And he said yes. He's doing it right now in Saginaw and some other places. So maybe our administrator can look at that, but I think we should somehow facilitate that to help both administration and the municipalities and townships get it right, and it appears that the ARPA funds can be used under, I think you said it was Section 7 of the administrative rules that you, for administration of the, you can use it for administration. So do you know anything about that, Carrie, or any interest in some help on that, or how do you feel about that?
So we have discussed it. You know, the first round that was allocated has been very labor intensive. And, you know, and I understand that document's lengthy, but for federal grants, it's a 200-page document of federal rules that you have to follow in addition to the terms and conditions under ARPA. So we wanted to make sure that, and I really wish we would have had these agreements the first time around, because we are having a lot of difficulty getting the required paperwork. And because the individuals maybe didn't understand up front. But Michigan Association of Counties did, in 2021, I believe, pre-qualify 4 different consultants to help with ARPA. So I believe there are already.
To help counties or townships and municipalities?
To help municipalities.
So sub-recipients might be able to
Correct.
do that?
That would be their county-driven organization, but I'm sure they help other municipalities. I believe Guidehouse was one of the 4 that they had on their list. But I do believe if we are going to allocate another $7 million, you know, certainly we have the expertise to do it. We just don't have the staff and the time.
So it would be helpful if the board went down that, considered that. It would help you and help the township. So in some fashion, I don't know how to do it, but I think we should talk about that. That's my point, to bring that up.
Yes.
Thank you.
I reviewed the entire thing, and I believe if you take a look at the last 6 pages, at least for myself, I'm going to speak for District 6, I believe it would have no issue at all having $1 million or 750, whatever that term and amount is. I think it's covered very easily. And MTA, Michigan Township Association, because of course I have townships, the city of Port Huron would be different, and different municipalities, but the township, the Michigan Township Association, they are fantastic. You probably worked with them some.
Yeah, we do.
They are fantastic, and they would assist also with any specific questions, but I don't think I'll have any issues myself in District 6.
Well, my point is, like this one I looked at for Berry County, it was an agreement with the Berry County Parks and Rec, and they were going to pave a pathway with ARPA money, and it was approved. The 10-page application had 46 pages of attachments, you know, so that's the kind of document that's going to come in on every one of these, you know, and each one of those, each district could have a dozen of them or something. So I just want to make sure that we help everybody, so that's all.
Okay. Any further discussion on ARPA funds then? All right, we'll move on to 7E, the Sheriff Office Manning Table Addition. Can I have a motion send it to full board?
Make a motion, send it to full board.
Can I have a second?
Support.
All right, thank you. Maybe you said it, I didn't hear you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. At this time, do we have any other Ways and Means Matters? Seeing none, any information? Can I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned.